All right, welcome everybody. This is our latest edition of Market Wrap. Once again, I'm coming to you not from our trading floor, but from my kitchen, as most of you probably are too. Everybody's working from home, social distancing, trying to stay safe, but we are still trading and still want to talk about the market and most importantly, still loving watches. So first section we're going to talk about is watches we did love this week. We are seeing fewer watches come in, but we are still trading, so we still have some nice stuff that I get to see across my computer screen, if not in my hand. The first piece we're going to talk about today is the Patek 5235G. If everybody remembers, this is a watch that came out in 2012. It's the regulator. It was the first really unusual presentation for Patek. They hadn't done a regulator in forever. They kind of launched it in the magazine. They didn't do a formal launch. And for about the first 2 years, it was impossible to get. Super hard watch, traded over retail. Now they became more common. Still an awesome piece. It's going to be an amazing in this world. Under 40,000 now, where they used to be in the 50s. So it's a piece we should look at. It's a piece that's really distinctive, and I love having it back in stock. So the second piece we're going to talk about is another unusual piece, the 5170G. This particular version is the 010 dial, which is the black Arabic. 5170 replaced probably one of my all-time favorite Pateks, which is the 5070, two-register chronograph, classic design. It got panned when it first came out because everybody loved the 5070 and was so distinctive that the 5170, while it had a Patek movement, the case wasn't as much, I think, as well received as we expected. The 5170G, the black dial, to me is the best version. It is now discontinued, so it wasn't around for a long run. And I think long-term, this is a piece that people are going to look back and say, should have grabbed one while I could have. It's an awesome two-register chronograph from Patek, so you can't really go wrong. And the last piece we got in this week was one of my all-time favorites. Everybody knows I'm a Rolex GMT guy. Actually, we're in the deep sea today, but the GMT is one of my favorites. And we got the 116719 white gold blue dial. Again, piece they only made for a short run. They spiked up again into the 50s because you couldn't get them. This is going to be posted hopefully in the next week or two. And again, it'll be in the high 30s. So great piece, long-term value, beautiful blue dial. I think it's an awesome piece. Glad to see that back in inventory. So those are the pieces that we got to see this week that came back in. Instead of jumping into the market, we're going to first talk about the news that broke today. So the first news that we found today was that Patek, Rolex, Chanel, Chopard, and Tudor all put a joint announcement out today that they are pulling out of the Basel Fair. Now, this is huge news. Basel has been around. Rolex, I read, has been exhibiting in Basel since 1939. This goes back to early days. Basel Fair was always the biggest event in the world. It was someplace that I went to for 30 plus years. It was an event like no other. Over the last 5 years, it became very corporate. It lost a little bit of that fun because you would literally walk in, they would present you new goods and say, here's what you're getting. Back 20, 30 years ago, you used to go discover new brands, see new products and share. It was a whole different dynamic. Fairs in general are tough to manage because they don't include the public, and there's a huge fortune both spent by the brands and by us. So Basel, I think, is done now. Without Rolex and Patek, there is no Basel Fair. Good news and bad news. Hopefully they'll come up with a new solution. They're going to do a new event in Geneva next year, part of Watches and Wonders, a combination. So we'll probably go to Switzerland once next year to see that. But again, we're hoping to still see some new product this year. Over the last week, we've seen a couple interesting things in the market. We've seen a big spike in Rolex activity. Rolexes did correct. The prices, especially, have come down and now are trading at a lower level and trading very actively. We had a real strong week in Rolex, somewhat unexpected because it was kind of flattened out. Now it's bumping back up. I think some of the good news in the market, some of the good news in just the world. I think everybody feels like we've got some kind of a window out of this. So I think people are getting a little more willing to trade and buy and sell. The other thing that really surprised me last week was we had a strong IWC week. Now, IWC is probably, our 8th or 10th brand. I like the brand. It's good value. But we saw a big jump. We actually sold 7 in one day last week. And it was, I think, due to repricing. We brought the pricing down on our IWCs about 2 weeks ago. In this market, we've kind of made the adjustment and said, listen, we can either ride it out and wait and hope things come back, but we feel like we'd rather adjust prices, move into sell inventory, buy back cheaper, and we'll keep trading along. So it was nice to see IWC pop up, and then we're hoping that continues. Basically, we're 3 weeks into this crisis. We're seeing liquidity in Rolex and Patek. Those things keep trading regularly. We're seeing some surprises like the IWC, but we're also seeing a lot of brands that are just sitting. And I think we're going to see a little bit of more of that for the next few weeks. The smaller brands, they don't get traded that much in general, but I think also right now, a lot of the dealers holding that stuff aren't willing to make a move and adjust prices. They're just going to try to ride it out. I think that's a mistake. I think every asset class that we know of has come down in price. Watches shouldn't be any different. If you're willing to buy in this environment, there should be a reward for that. And reward for that, to me, should be a great price. I think what's going to get interesting is where we go for the next month. I'm expecting everything I'm hearing. We will get some relaxing of these home measures in the next few weeks. But the question is going to become with what happens in the retail market. Retail, especially that's centered in New York, is going to be slow to come back. I mean, New York's probably the hardest hit area. The big watch retailers are there. A lot of the boutiques are there. You're going to see a slow comeback on the boutique business. So I think the market will run into some shortages over the next few months, which will help support prices. Once they do reopen, you might see a wave of goods hit the market in the summer, which could see the market dip a little bit. But I think overall, the way I'm looking at it, by the fourth quarter, with all these ups and downs and some shortages on supply, we might see a more normalized market third or fourth quarter. The last thing we want to touch on is where we see long-term buys holding value. We've seen real good strength in Audemars, especially on their Royal Oak steels. While Patek's corrected and Rolex has corrected a lot, I have not seen those drop a lot. We've traded a few, and they're very close to their pre-virus prices. I think it's because the supply is short, and they were just super hot pieces. So we're still seeing good activity there. I'm seeing real strength where I talked about the 5170s on 5070s. It's still the most iconic piece. I think long-term, they have come down a little, but I think long-term, that'll be a great buy to hold on to and come out of with a great piece. I think just want to finish up and say, listen, we're doing as much promoting as we can. We're out on Instagram. We're doing our regular shows. We're getting a lot of feedback, which is great. We love to see that. Feel free to reach out. Follow us on Instagram. Hopefully follow us on Market Wrap and some of our other shows. And please pray for our frontline workers. I watch it all day. We see the nurses and doctors out there, the police, the firemen, really risking their lives so we can get back to normalcy at some point. So keep everybody in their prayers. Everybody stay home and everybody stay safe.